We're about to dive into the powerful psychological reasons why some people absolutely refuse to apologize even when they are clearly in the wrong. And it all gets started with a single, devastating question.
Just imagine this. You are sitting right across from someone who has just hurt you. The proof is right there, it's undeniable. You're just waiting for one simple word, sorry. But instead, they look you dead in the eye and say, "Why do you always look for trouble?" Think about that. You walked into that room as the victim. You knew the truth. You were the one who was wronged. And all you wanted, all you were hoping for, was for them to just acknowledge it, to take a little responsibility so you could both just move forward.
But in a matter of seconds, the entire script just flips. The conversation gets twisted, and somehow this is now your fault. You leave that room feeling completely confused, questioning yourself with this horrible knot of guilt in your stomach.
Let's be clear. This is not some simple misunderstanding. This isn't an argument that just went sideways. No, this is a psychological trap, and it is specifically designed to make you question and even destroy your own sense of reality. So let's break down exactly how it works.
To really get a feel for the emotional gut punch of this whole dynamic, let's dive into a story, one that might feel a little too familiar. Okay, so this is Maya, and Maya grew up with this core belief, one that a lot of us share, that any problem, really, can be solved if you just have good, open communication.
But in her current relationship, things are, well, they're different. Every single time she tries to talk about her disappointment or about something that hurt her, the situation somehow gets turned completely against her.
And then came the breaking point. She discovered a really serious lie. But the argument that followed didn't end with a resolution. It ended with Maya in tears apologizing for being too sensitive and for invading his privacy by finding out the truth.
So now, Maya is living with this constant, chronic anxiety. She's always questioning her own memory, her own integrity, stuck in this loop of wondering, am I crazy? Is this all my fault?
So why on earth does this happen? Well, to understand that, we need to get into the science of it all. And the answer begins with a really fundamental concept in psychology.
It's called cognitive dissonance. A psychologist named Leon Festinger first proposed it. And it's basically that deeply uncomfortable mental stress you feel when your actions clash with your image of yourself. It's like a full-on battle inside your own mind.
So here's the internal conflict, right? On one hand, a person believes, I am a good, kind, moral person. But on the other hand, the evidence clearly shows I just did something that harmed someone. The human brain cannot stand holding those two opposing ideas at the same time. To get rid of that stress, something has to give.
And for someone with a really fragile ego, someone whose entire sense of self is built on the idea of being flawless, admitting a mistake is more than just uncomfortable. It feels like a catastrophic threat. To them, apologizing feels like a form of personal annihilation, like their whole identity would just shatter.
So, to protect that fragile ego, the brain has to reframe the entire situation. And this is where we have to understand the huge difference between two very powerful and often confused emotions.
See, guilt and shame are not the same thing. Not at all. Guilt is about an action. It's that inner voice saying, I did a bad thing. And that feeling usually motivates us to repair the damage, to apologize. But shame is totally different. It attacks our core identity. The voice of shame doesn't say, I did something bad. It says, I am bad. And that feeling doesn't motivate repair. It motivates hiding, escaping, or even worse, striking back.
And that is the absolute core of the problem. When a person is driven by deep-seated shame, an apology isn't seen as a way to heal. It feels like a public confirmation of their deepest, darkest fear, that they are fundamentally worthless. And so, they have to avoid it at all costs.
Now, this internal defense mechanism can very quickly turn into a devastating weapon that's used against other people. Let's open up the playbook. Because when refusing to apologize is no longer just an internal struggle to avoid shame, but becomes a strategy, conscious or not, to control others, it morphs into a clear and destructive pattern of abuse. And that pattern has a name, DARVO. It's an acronym that brilliantly describes the 3 steps manipulators take when they're held accountable. This isn't just random defensiveness, it's a playbook. So here's how it goes down. First, they deny the wrongdoing completely. That never happened, you're making it up. Then, when they're faced with evidence, they move to step 2, attack. They attack your credibility, your sanity, your character. You're crazy, you're too sensitive.
And finally, the most disorienting move of all, they reverse the roles, painting themselves as the real victim and you as the one who's attacking them.
Research shows this is a go-to tactic for people high in what's called antagonistic narcissism. The key here is that they lack empathy. And if you can't feel another person's pain, there's nothing to trigger guilt. For them, an apology isn't about connection or healing. It's an act of submission, a defeat they simply cannot handle. They win by making you question your own reality.
So, if any of this sounds painfully familiar, if you see yourself in Maya's story, what do? How do you start to reclaim your own reality? Okay, first and most importantly, please know this. Your confusion, your self-doubt, that feeling of guilt, those are not signs of weakness. They are normal, predictable responses to a deeply manipulative tactic. You are not too sensitive. You are not crazy. You are dealing with someone whose ego is just too fragile to bear the weight of the truth.
And here is the single most important thing to remember. Your peace doesn't depend on getting an apology from someone who is incapable of giving one. Your true power isn't in forcing them to admit they were wrong. It's in seeing the truth for yourself, setting firm boundaries to protect your reality, and having the strength to walk away from their illusion without ever apologizing for your own valid feelings again.